Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome inside Garage Door Sports, your no-holds-barred weekly discussion on everything in the sporting world. For all your news on hockey, baseball, basketball, football, soccer, and more, you've come to the right place. And now it's time for your hosts, Nick McVicker, Kyle Vardy, and Irfan Manji. What up, everybody? Nick McVicker back in studio, still by myself, but eventually we're going to have people back in here. Kyle could not join us this week, but don't worry, Irfan is still joining us through the Garage Door Sports Cup phone. Irfan, how you doing, my man?
Good. I'm excited. Saturday means show day, means a little break, means let's talk some sports and don't have to worry about anything else. It's good. It's good.
Absolutely, and it's gonna be
How's
fun.
your week, buddy?
We got it's been good, man. Canada Day was awesome.
Nice.
Had a really good time. Probably shouldn't have gone to Port Credit, but
Probably. But
it was packed. That was the busiest I've seen Port Credit outside of Ribfest.
Yeah.
It was insane.
Oh, there's so many people out. Like, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, but I mean, like, I don't mind people being out. It was just the fact that, like, everyone went to Port Credit. Like, it was ridiculous. But we walked around there and then came back here and watched movies. Good times. Good times. But a lot has happened in the sporting world this week, and a lot more is going to happen in the sporting world in the next couple of weeks with MLS starting on Wednesday. We got the NBA coming back at the end of the month. NFL training camps are supposed to start at the end of August, and NHL is supposed to start training camps sometime in July. Again, those dates are still to be determined for the NHL, but anyway. But outside of those games, we actually have news coming out of all these sports. So let's get right into our kickoff segment, sponsored by Canada Kicking Academy, calling all kickers and punchers in the Southern Ontario region. If you are looking for year-round professional development with elite competition, you need to train with the Canada Kicking Academy. The Ferraro brothers, Daniel and Gabe, are both University of Guelph alumni, and after illustrious university careers, they want to teach you everything they've learned over the years. If you want to take your special teams game to the next level, you need to train with the Canada Kicking Academy. Visit them at CanadaKickingAcademy.com and follow them on Instagram at Canada Kicking Academy. And, I mean, the boys are kickoff specialists from football, so why don't we talk news from the football world to do our kickoff today? And the big bomb dropped this week, and the Patriots have a new starting QB. Well, maybe starting QB.
Maybe.
Well, that is yet to be determined. Cam Newton signs with the New England Patriots. And I wish Kyle was here because I know he's also a Patriot fan, but thankfully we still have you. What does the Cam Newton signing mean to the Patriots? And let's just be clear. He signed for the league minimum of $1.05 million. Only $550,000 of that is guaranteed. What does he mean to the Patriots this season?
Well, one MVP out, one MVP in sort of thing. It's an in and out trade. I think it's for the fan base as well here going, what are we going to do? Like, as good as Jerry Stidham is, or Hoyer could be, or whatever experience they might have, or how great Belichick is, I think it's still important to have a QB that has the name, that has the pedigree. You're going to see a little different Patriots offense this year, I would say. I think if he starts, he'll be a little different. He'll be running the ball a little bit more. He'll give a little bit of pace to an otherwise, slow offense when it was Brady just in the pocket, not being able to really move. So it gives him a different dimension. It's great for the fans. Like I said, one MVP in, one MVP out.
Yeah, and you mentioned Stidham and Hoyer.
Yeah.
Hoyer is signed for the league minimum for a veteran at $1.05 million. Stidham is signed for even less because he's still young. He hasn't accrued enough time in the league to get that veteran minimum. They have 3 quarterbacks signed for under $3 million.
Yeah, basically.
A former MVP, a former very, very solid backup in Brian Hoyer, and a very good young quarterback, all for under $3 million. did Belichick just win the offseason somehow? Like, he lost Brady and somehow got another MVP. Like, I don't understand how this man does it. And it pisses me right the fuck off.
He's just a smart football man. What am I gonna say?
I don't get it. But
he's good at finding little wins like this.
he is. And you know what? At the beginning of the offseason, there was 2 quarterbacks. As soon as Brady left, there was 2 quarterbacks that I think I told both you and Kyle that I'm like, there is a very good possibility that one of these 2 guys ends up in New England. And it was Jameis Winston, famous Jameis, doing his thing. He ended up in New Orleans as a backup. And it was Cam Newton. Because you always hear that Belichick is able to take these great players and turn them into even better players, or these good players and turn them into even better players. I could have seen either of them go. And I think it would have been fair to say either of them could have gone to the New England Patriots and would have been happy to go there. Play under Bill Belichick, be that way. And everyone rips on Jameis Winston. He's not a good quarterback. He's not a good quarterback. Listen, the guy just led the league in touchdowns and yards last season. Not 3 seasons ago, not 4 seasons ago.
No,
last year, the guy led the league in yards and touchdowns. You can't tell me he's not a good quarterback.
Yeah. I mean, if he just fixes his interception rate,
right.
I think he's a very good quarterback.
That's
but
the thing.
He also played on
he's,
a team.
he's a good quarterback right now, right? And that's my thing. Like, everyone wants him to be elite because he came out of the draft near the top, like whatever. I get that. And he has the potential to be an actually elite quarterback. But when it comes down to it, he made mistakes last year. So everyone rips him. He's, you can't make good decisions, yada, 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 yada.
Yeah, but
guy
you look at what he had in front of him half the time too, right? Like,
well, yeah, but the guy also had to have LASIK eye surgery in the offseason because he couldn't see.
Yeah.
You think that might help?
I think, he won't see doubles.
Right? But if they had added him to the Patriots, right? He's not, he hasn't been injured really. He just threw for the most yards in the league. You're adding him to a Patriots team that has receivers who can catch the ball. I'm not going to say they're game breakers, the receiving core in New England, because let's be honest, they're really not. But they're good receiving core. Like, they're not going to blow you out of the water, but they're going to make catches. If he can see and he can throw for yards, and we saw what he did with the Bucs team, who, outside of like Evans, really,
he didn't really have much.
He didn't really have a whole lot of like top end talent either. So he could have potentially been a good fit. Obviously, he went to the Saints, and he's going to sit behind Breeze, and he's going to learn from one of the best in the league about decision making. Like, that's not a bad spot to be in. But now you see Cam coming in, and it's going to, as you said, it's going to be a very, very different offense.
That's good, though, because it's a change. It's a good change for the Patriots. I think the last 20 years, it's the same sort of mold, the same sort of mindset, but now you have a younger guy, and then you have Cam who can move.
And you know what? I don't watch a whole lot of Patriots games, so I'm gonna pose this question to you, because based off what I've seen, I think their offensive line is good. Am I wrong?
No, it's good.
Right? They usually gave Brady tons of time in the pocket. He was able to make decisions.
Yeah,
you now have a quarterback who's not only a good thrower, because Cam has a decent arm, not a great arm. He's not an elite arm talent quarterback, but he has a good arm. You now bring him into this with the ability to run behind a good offensive line. That changes the game.
Oh yeah, not only is he going to get space, he's going to make space himself.
Exactly. And he's going to open up lanes, and he's going to open up the middle of the field, because most teams are now going to have to put a QB spy as a linebacker in the middle, and that guy's not going to go anywhere. So now you have the space in behind him, and you have less pressure on your receivers. Whereas Brady was not at all a threat to run the ball. It was just not going to happen.
No.
Because he can't. That's a whole other issue.
Just never was. No, it's true. It's a good start, I think, for Bill, because I think you noticed with Patrick Mahomes being able to move. You look at what's his name? I always forget him. The Baltimore Ravens guy.
Lamar?
The guy from Clemson, Lamar. Yes. Same thing. You got all these young quarterbacks that can move and not only make space for themselves, but have a good offensive line to create space. And
Right.
I think that's the mold and that's the movement that the league's going towards. And Bill Smart, man,
Oh, yeah.
less than 1.5 million for a fantastic quarterback. I think it's good for the Pat.
Hold on, less than 1.1 million.
Oh, less than 1.1 million. See, I was
It's
just rounding up there.
1.05 mil is his contract.
Oh,
Him and Hoyer are both signed for the exact same amount.
it's insane.
Now, I'm going to pose another question to you. Are you ready for this?
All right, let's do it.
Does the Newton signing put the Patriots back in the favorite spot in the East? In the AFC East?
Yes, but I don't think they ever left because I'll tell you why. I don't. Oh, hold on. I'll tell you why. I don't think they were. I think if you talk to any, I know you're holding it in, but I know if you talk to any of the Bills teams or any of the Jets teams, you still have to beat the Patriots to get through that division, correct? Even if they don't have the best quarterback in the league, I feel like now it becomes harder for these teams that thought they could surpass the Pats, but now they actually have to be like, oh shit, now we have to deal with another really good quarterback. So I think that what's the level to pass or surpass, I should say, was still there. Is that you still have to beat them to be the best in that division.
Okay.
So you still have that was my thought process behind it. I didn't think they would be the best team in the division by the end of the season, but adding Cam into it, I think it changes them.
Okay.
A little bit.
I get what you're saying there. That makes sense.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I apologize for my reaction.
No, it's a fair reaction.
My thing was at the beginning of the offseason,
mm-hmm.
the Bills were a much better team than the Patriots.
Yes. In terms of that, I agree with that, yes.
So I think that's why I was holding my breath when you said that they were always the favorite, is that they weren't always the favorite. Like, the Bills were the better team at the beginning of the offseason. So that's why, in my mind, the Bills were the favorite to win the division. I get what you're saying when it comes to you have to beat the best from the year before to become the best.
Okay.
So that makes sense.
Yeah. But if we're talking on paper and we're talking about skill set going into the offseason, then I agree with you. I think Josh Allen and the Bills were much better.
And then they did really good in the draft. I think they had a better draft than the Patriots.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think the Patriots had a bad draft. I would like to point that out. I actually think the Patriots did pretty well in the draft. I think the Bills had a very good draft. And they set themselves up for a very good season. This throws a wrinkle in because now you have to game plan against Cam Newton in an offense that Cam Newton would never have played in before. So you have no idea what the Patriots are going to do. Are they going to turn Cam into a pocket passer? Are they going to are they going to allow him to play his normal game? Like, it's going to be a whole different thing. I still think the Bills are favorite.
Okay.
But barely. Like, it's Bills-Patriots for me, and the Bills are just ahead.
Yeah.
I'm talking, like, 10-6, 9-7 seasons.
Sort of, yeah.
Right? Like, one game could separate this division. I still think the Jets are third.
Mm-hmm.
And I pretty much thought the Jets were third anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And then the Dolphins. The Dolphins are my unicorn team in this division because I have no clue what to expect from them. Yep. They're either going to have a good season or they're going to be absolutely trash. And the problem is that I really can't predict it.
They'll randomly beat a very good team, like outrun them for one game, and then lose 4 in a row, and you're like,
but that's the thing. Like, if they figure it out and put it together, they could have an 8-8, 9-7 season.
Mm-hmm.
But I just can't. I don't have enough faith in them to say that they're going to do that. So I have them more like a 6-10 or a 5-11 season, right? Like, it's sort of where I'm leaning towards.
For sure. If they do have it figured out, I could see them getting past the Jets because the Jets.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like,
I never know what to expect from them either.
Those two teams, I think they're just basement dwellers right now, and especially with all the turmoil in the Jets, I don't see them surpassing the Patriots or the Bills for top 2 in the division.
Agreed.
As simple as that. Okay, last question regarding this whole thing. Newton is now signed. He's a QB off the market. is Colin Kaepernick going to be the next QB signed in the NFL? Next free agent QB signed in the NFL?
I would say I think he has to be.
Why?
He hasn't stopped. I don't think he stopped working out. His dedication to the game hasn't stopped, even though he hasn't played since 2016. Okay. So for like the hard work, the effort, the amount of intensity that he brings to every workout every single day, why not give him a chance? Because he shows the heart to play, not right. because of any other standpoint or any other movement, but like the fact that he's putting in the effort. And if you're a team that's struggling, doesn't matter where, and you're lacking effort on your team, and you bring a guy in who's worked hard for the last 4 years, I think he changes the dynamic there. And I'm keeping it out of football sense.
Right, and I get what you're saying there, and I think that is a fair statement. And honestly, like, you look at the numbers side by side,
mm-hmm.
Cap and Newton's side by side numbers are like eerily similar when you look at averages. So like, we'll take out games played in yards because it's not really fair. Newton's played twice as many games. But like, Newton has 182 TDs in 125 games. Cap has 72 throwing touchdowns in 69 games.
Mm-hmm.
More than a touchdown a game. That's pretty good. Yards per completion. 7.3 for Newton. 7.3 for Cap.
Yep.
Completion percentage. Newton, 59.6. Cap, 59.8.
Yeah.
So you're telling me that he didn't have talent back then? You're barking up the wrong tree.
No, it was about more than talent at that point, but right. I don't think that should be
the
focus.
I will point out that Cap was coming back from injury when all this sort of happened.
Mm.
So that could have played an ever small factor in him not getting signed right away. Because he was coming back from injury. Now it looks like he has the talent. We'll have to wait and see. I just think the NFL is the NFL, and he probably still will go unsigned.
If he gets signed, who do you think he gets signed by?
Oh man,
you can list them. I know that. There's a bunch of teams.
There's a bunch of teams that he should get signed by.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think he will get signed by them, but that's a whole other issue. Like, I can't even name one off the top of my head that I think will sign him. The closest one that I think, and the most progressive one, is probably Seattle, but that's not really a place that I think Cap wants to go and sit behind Russell Wilson. It might actually probably be the best situation for him because they run a similar offense to what he would run in the NFL. So it might be a good year experience to sit behind Wilson, get a year back under his leg, get on a practice field, do that. And get into games at the end of games because, let's be honest, Seattle's probably going to win a few games big. You get in garbage time games, right? Like, it might be worth it for him to do that. I don't think he will.
Mm-hmm.
Miami, they just got Tua, right? So they're trying to move to a more versatile offense as well. So they might want to bring him in just to give Tua a year. Although they have a quarterback, I guess, too.
Yeah, Fitzpatrick.
And I love Fitzpatrick, by the way. He's one of my favorite football players of all time. Not one of the best, but one of my favorite. So it's tough for me to say that he's going to find a spot, and I don't really know where I would put him. I'll be honest with you. I have no idea. What about you?
I think I said this last time, but I think the Lions would be someone to consider.
No.
Not in terms of offensive scheme, but the fact that Stafford's been subpar. He's been okay. I mean,
Stafford's been unreal in that absolutely awful offense.
Have I been looking at the wrong... Hold on. I'm looking at the wrong...
Stafford has done incredible things with an offense that is absolutely putrid. Look at the core around him.
We're good. I take it back. Never mind.
Sorry, that's my division, bro. I've watched Stafford pick apart defenses.
I just watched. Okay. No, then it's not him. Never mind. I take it back. I don't know where he's gonna go. It's fine.
That's the thing. I don't know either. That's the problem. Is that there's a bunch of teams that the scheme fits, but they already have a starting QB who's better than Cap right now, or already in place.
So then, I guess, would it be a team that's okay? Like, would the Giants go out and get him,
No.
for example, just to sit on a bench, or would the Jets go out and get him and have
the Jets? I could see.
Like go 1-2 with Darnold and maybe that sort of thing.
The Jets is way more realistic than the Giants, just because the Giants have their QB and he showed last year that he can be a new number one.
Yeah.
The Jets, as much as Darnold has shown that he can be a number one, he's also shown that he shouldn't be a number one. Like, it's sort of a toss-up in my mind. He could be a great number one if he figures it out, and he's shown flashes of it, but he's just not consistent, and it hurts him every time. Right? Depending on how the Nick Foles fiasco goes in Chicagoland with Trubisky, they might need a quarterback.
Potentially, yeah.
And that would be actually a decent receiving core for Cap, but I don't know. Anyways, that's neither here nor there. We're not involved in that. So
no. Just sign the man. Just sign the man. It'll be fun.
Sign him on the dotted line. Let's move on.
Yep.
And we have talked about the MLB's return to play, and we're going to talk about it a little bit more right now. After all of that has happened in this off-season, beginning of season, pandemic-fueled thing, I guess I should end the kickoff segment, shouldn't I? I'm usually good at this. That'll do it for our kickoff segment, sponsored by Canada Kicking Academy. If you are looking for year-round professional development with elite competition, you need to train with the Canada Kicking Academy. Daniel and Gabriel are both University of Guelph alumni, and after illustrious university careers, they want to teach you everything they've learned over the years. You can visit them at CanadaKickingAcademy.com or follow them on Instagram at Canada Kicking Academy. Thank you, Irfan, for reminding me about that. That's my bad, buddy.
It's okay, man.
But let's get into the MLB and all the crap that's happened in this pandemic coronavirus with the players and the league going back and forth trying to set up this shortened season, which may never happen. Rob Manfred has been front and center, and in his defense, he has to be front and center because he's the head of the league, and like anything that the owners want to do has to go through Manfred, and he has to say it. But he hasn't looked good. And the question, I'm going to pose this question to you. I'm just going to keep posing you questions, and we'll keep talking about them.
Mm-hmm.
Is Rob Manfred's legacy as a commissioner tainted because of this 1 year?
It's a tough question. I'm going to say no.
Okay. Why?
I'm going to say no because I still think he's been a pretty decent commish for the league in terms of, if we're talking revenue, if we're talking trying to build it up, bringing in people, yes, but this does sort of put a little question mark beside his name, I should say, in the sense that everything he said over the last couple of months, he has to come back and re-say it, or he has to fix what he said because he's like, that's not what I meant.
Yeah.
So to me, I'm not as confident when he comes on the podium or he releases something and says, well, I think this is going to happen now. So I'm taking it with a little grain of salt when he's saying something. I'd rather him not come out and say stuff and just wait till the full story's developed rather than going, yeah, I think we're going to have a full season. We're not going to have a full season. Oh, we're going to play 60 games. We're probably not going to play 60 games. So like the back and forth, for me, I kind of lost confidence in him, but I don't think it taints him just yet, unless the season gets canceled because of some stupid reason, not COVID related, but like the fact that, you know, the league and the players start arguing about something else now, and it just won't get solved. And I think that's what would damage his reputation. But right now, I think he needs to build up his confidence and not speak before there's a full decision made.
So I'm going to go back to one thing that you said.
Yeah.
and you said that you are now taking everything that he says with a grain of salt.
Mm-hmm.
That right there is the reason that I think his legacy is tainted.
Okay.
That
because
exact
of
reason.
This whole situation, like because of not being able to decide on the season, because of going back and forth, like you would say that would
right.
Fair.
No, because now everyone, anytime he talks, there's no confidence in him.
Yeah.
Right? Like among fans, among outsiders, right? Because every time we hear him say something, it's like, well, is that really the case, or are we going to come back in a week and have to redo this, right? Like, so that's why I think the legacy has been completely tainted. And it's not, I'm not going to say it's all his fault that it's tainted. It's a very weird situation. It's unprecedented, obviously. We've talked about how unprecedented this entire pandemic is. But it is his fault that he kept going back on his word, and he kept going back on what he was saying. And that is an issue, and that needed to be fixed. Unfortunately, it's not going to be.
No.
And that's unfortunate because up till this point, I thought Manfred was doing a lot to move the game back forward. He was talking about reinstating Pete Rose. He was doing all this stuff.
No, good stuff.
And now this is going to happen, and people are going to question him, and it's going to be a problem. And I don't know how long he lasts after this. Yeah. After the next CBA, which will be coming up next year, right? Because they have to do this all again in the off season, don't they? Or is it the year after?
I think it's within the next 2 years or 1 year.
It's either this off season or the next off season that the CBA comes up. They're going to have to do this all over again. And
I think it's 2021, eh? So yeah, within the next year or so.
Yeah. So that means this off season coming up.
Yeah.
So they're going to have to do this all over again.
Mm-hmm.
And he's going to be front and center again as the voice of the owners going up against the MLBPA. And it's not a good look.
No.
Like, had they come to terms right away and figured out everything in March, and then when they needed to figure out the schedule, everything stayed the same, and they just figured out a schedule, Manfred would have gone down as one of the best commissioners in baseball history.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Bud Selig has always been up there. People liked Bud Selig. Had Manfred been able to navigate a pandemic with zero fault on either side, this would have been like the shining moment of his commissioner tenure.
So let me ask you this then, including the issue with the CBA this past, for COVID and everything, do you think the fact that he let the Astros and the Red Sox and anyone cheating kind of slide also taint his legacy or damage his reputation that way? Because he kind of went into this not so hot because of the decisions made.
I mean, that's another thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this year has not been kind to Manfred.
No.
And I think the Red Sox one, they might have gotten right. Because I don't know, there was no proof that it happened on multiple occasions. It could have just happened once. And they punished Cora for it. Now, they should have punished him for a season, not the year, because that's two totally different things.
Yeah, but at that time, nobody knew that this would be
I don't care.
Pandemic. But no, I know. But I'm just saying that mentality is, well, it's a season's a year. That's it.
Yeah.
Not full season, so it's the fine lines there.
The Astros one was handled poorly.
Mm-hmm.
All the way through. No players being suspended. The team not having to vacate the title. All of that is handled absolutely piss poor.
Mm-hmm.
But they got the right answer. Like, in the end, they got that the Astros did cheat. They didn't give them enough penalties. They didn't do that. So, yeah, his legacy was tainted because of that. The whole league was tainted because of that, though, in my opinion. I don't know if it was just Manfred. I think it was the whole league because they still have... and I'm going to keep bringing his name up, but Pete Rose is still not allowed to take part in any, official MLB things. I think he might have... That might be wrong because I think he did partake in, an all-star game ceremony one time. But he's not allowed to be in the Hall of Fame. He's not allowed to take part in MLB events.
Yeah.
But the Astros are getting off without a warning. Barely a warning, I should say. They lost a draft pick this year. Oh, my goodness.
Yeah. Is it really going to damage them for the year? No,
Like,
if there's no season.
Well, okay, forget that though. Like, they lost one draft pick this year and one next year, right? So you lost 2 players in a system that is already shrinking because they're cutting how many MLB or minor league teams there are per team. So now all the best players from the A divisions are now going to move up to AA, and the AA guys going to AAA. So you're filling those spots anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, they're a first or second round pick. I get that, and those are usually top talent. But guess what? They cut the draft this year to 5 rounds, and some of the best talent wasn't even picked anyway. So you can sign those guys for free.
Yeah.
You don't have to draft them. You're going to get a top player as an undrafted free agent.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's just how it is. Like, there used to be 30 rounds in the MLB draft.
Mm-hmm.
You were getting like 30 players. You got 5 this year. Think about how many players went undrafted.
Yeah, they could probably just be like, oh, that guy's good. He didn't get signed. Stake him.
I talked to probably a couple players who might have gotten drafted had there been a deep draft this year, but there wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's just how it is. So the Astros really didn't lose anything by losing draft picks. They had to pay some money. Oh, it's $1 million corporation. I don't care. Like, a couple mil is not going to hurt them. And what, they lost their manager and their GM for a year, which is a shortened year anyway, so it doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't. The punishment does not fit the crime. But I think you're right when it comes to his legacy was tainted beforehand.
Mm.
And this didn't help. It probably tainted it more.
No, 2020 hasn't been a good year for anybody.
2020 has been a rough year for baseball.
Mm-hmm.
But let's move on to something a little bit more positive.
Yes.
Okay, and the MLB has announced that the divisions will be East, Central, West for the upcoming 60-game sprint to the finish season that it will be. By the way, I heard A-Rod talking yesterday on, it was either First Take or Get Up on ESPN, and he said the best thing. He's like, the MVP of this season will be the athletic trainers and the physiotherapists and the nutritionists that are able to keep their team healthy for the entire 60 games. Because
the medical
staffs are going to be the MVPs of the season, because you lose 2 weeks in a normal season, nothing. It's not even a blip. It's not even 10%. You lose 2 weeks in a 60-game season, you're missing roughly 17% of the season.
Yes.
Roughly. That's a lot. So
it's going to be tough to even make it up, right? But usually teams have like the end of August, most of September to kind of fill a gap. You don't really have that.
No, exactly. So it'll be interesting to see which team sort of comes out on top. And I mean, let's take a look at the 3 divisions, right?
Yep.
We'll start in the East because, well, I mean, we know the East a little bit better. And we obviously get the AL East, and you have Baltimore, Boston, the Yankees, Tampa, and Toronto. You add in the NL teams, and you get Atlanta, Miami, the Mets, Philly, and Washington. It's a tough division.
Are Braves Central or are they East?
Braves are East.
Oh, there you go. So Fangraphs has it incorrect.
Yeah, because Braves are always competing with the Phillies and the
Bless you.
Yeah, so you look at the National League, and that's a tough division to be joining the AL East, and you have the World Series champion from last year against the considered to be the best team in the league this year in the Yankees. Tampa is supposed to be right up there with the Yankees in the AL East. Now they're going to have to compete with Washington. Philly's a good team. Atlanta got better. Like, all of a sudden the Jays aren't looking so hot.
No.
But I think the Jays at the same time are one of those teams that if they get hot, they're going to get hot. Like, you have Guerrero, you have Bichette, you have Gurriel, you have Biggio. When those guys get hot, they stay hot.
Yeah.
Add
You
in
noticed
some
last year
pitching.
they had what was it, like 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks that they were consistently hot.
Yeah, right? Like, they
And during
have the
the
ability to get hot. And
Yeah.
it's a 60-game season. You get hot for 3 weeks, like, that's huge. It's almost half the season. Right? So they can get hot and they can compete. They need to get hot game 1. Like, that's their only chance. If they can get hot game 1 and start taking games from these teams early, it makes a huge difference. You're not fighting to try to get back in. Because don't forget, these 10 teams are only playing against these 10 teams. Right? Like, they're not going up against teams from the Central or the West like they normally would. They're just competing against the Eastern teams. So you have to win games against these guys in order to make the playoffs over these guys.
Yep.
So it'll be interesting. Central Division is the weakest in my opinion. And it's not even close. Like, they are god awful. You got the Cubs, who are on the down. You got the White Sox, who are on the rise, and they might actually be good this year. You got the Cincinnati Reds, who no one knows what they're going to be. You got the Indians, who are on the way down. You got Detroit, who is going to be just as awful as the Miami Marlins. You got Kansas City, who are terrible.
Yep.
Minnesota will be good. Minnesota should win the division. Then you got Milwaukee, Pittsburgh, and St. Louis, who are all average teams to good teams at best.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that division is bad.
Yeah.
And I don't know what your opinion is, but
no, I agree with you. So what's it with the league and the central divisions on both sides being very piss bad?
The thing is, you go 3 years ago, the central divisions in both leagues were one of the best. Like, think about the Cubs 3 years ago. Think about the Indians 3 years ago. Think about the Royals 3 years ago. Think about Minnesota 3 years ago. Think about Pittsburgh and St. Louis 3 years ago, right? Like, they were good. Yeah. They were really good teams. But St. Louis is older now. Pittsburgh traded a bunch of players away. Kansas City lost all their players from their World Series runs. Detroit is old. And the Indians lost some of their pitching, some of their players. Right? Like, they just got old. The Cubs didn't really lose anybody. They just stopped playing at World Series potential. Like, I don't know what happened with that Cubs team. They lost Arrieta. That was really it. They just got older.
Older, didn't really want to play anymore.
So, I don't know. That division is just not good. And then you look out west, and it's stacked. Like, the West is stacked this year. I kind of feel bad for the bottom teams because they're just going to get beat up. But you go through Arizona, they're a good team. Not a great team, but they're a good team. Colorado, they're a good team. Again, not a great team, but they're going to be competitive. Houston, we're assuming they're going to be competitive. They didn't really lose anybody but Cole, so they should be competitive. The Angels are supposed to be competitive this year. The Dodgers are the Dodgers. They got Mookie Betts and got better. Oakland supposed to be competitive this year. And they were last year. They made the playoffs. The Padres supposed to be better this year. San Francisco, they're going to struggle.
Yes.
Seattle,
probably the weakest team.
They're going to struggle.
Mm-hmm.
But they're good. They're not terrible.
No.
And Texas was supposed to have a good year, and now they're going up against the Dodgers and Colorado and Arizona and Oakland.
They're playing everybody good.
The Rangers got screwed.
Yeah.
Like, let's be
They're
fair.
supposed to be a good bubble team there.
If it was the normal division, Houston and Oakland might be 1-2 in that division. Texas was right there.
Yeah.
Now they have to play the Dodgers. They have to play San Diego. They have to play Colorado, and they have to play Arizona. Like, if I'm the Rangers, I'm looking at each other like, what did we do to deserve this?
They built a really funky looking facility. That's why.
Yeah.
That's the reason.
It does look nice.
No, it is nice. I'm just kidding.
But I have no idea who wins that division, to be honest.
Like, I think the Dodgers are the cream of the crop. In reality, the Stros are close there, but then other than that, you're like, everyone is very, very good.
Yeah. So I still want to know how they're going to do playoffs. I really do. But that'll come down to it later.
Manfred will make an announcement that everyone makes playoffs, and a week later, be like, sorry, only the best team wins. That's it. We're done.
Let's bring it back to the Jays and news a little bit coming out of Toronto. Well, for Toronto people, it's big. The Jays training camp will be held in Toronto. The season is to be determined. They don't know where they're playing their season games yet. They're trying to get approval from the federal government and the provincial government in Ontario. But the training camp is happening here. And what they're doing is basically everyone is in Dunedin right now, and they're chartering flights coming straight from Dunedin to Toronto. They will have chartered buses to pick up all the players, take them to the Rogers Centre. That's key. They're going to the Rogers Centre, not to the hotel.
Yep.
And then they're going to have the access to the hotel attached to the Rogers Centre open for the players to go in straight to their rooms. Automated sign-in so they don't have to actually go to the desk. Bob's your uncle, there you go. Now all of a sudden the players are in this bubble and they can go from their hotel room to the Rogers Centre.
Yep.
That's it. That's all you get.
No need to leave. No, it's a good system.
It's a great system. But they want to play regular season games here, and I don't like that. I don't care what everyone thinks. I don't like it. Because the travel for all these teams in the States, coming from possible hotbeds like, I don't know, Miami? Yeah, I don't like that. Don't bring that here. I get that they're going to have chartered flights, and they're going to do exactly what the Jays are doing. And they're coming from Dunedin, which isn't much better. But the Jays have time before the season starts to quarantine and deal with it. These teams don't. When it comes to a regular season, they don't have the time. It's not worth it to have it here. I don't know. What's your opinion, Irfan?
I think the only reason why Toronto or any Canadian city is going to be considered, and I know we'll talk about this with the NHL, is we have the least amount of cases.
Right.
Like we are a hotbed in terms of Canadian context. We're not as bad as the States are, knock on wood. So I think even though we don't want it to happen, we're going to get an influx of athletes in the city, which might increase our numbers to a degree.
Right.
I'm not a fan of it. I'm also not a fan of sports returning because we're not even sure what's going on with the virus. In reality, to be fair.
No, I agree. I don't think sports need to come back. But it
shouldn't be rushed though. But it shouldn't be rushed the way it is. It's like we're coming back because fans want it. These people want it. This wants it.
That's not why. Don't give me that. The only reason it's coming back is because of money. Okay, that is the only reason sports need to come back right now.
But like,
there's no need.
When Bettman came out with his statement saying the hockey's coming back, it's like because of the fans, and I was like, nobody. It's the fact that you want money to come into your freaking pocket.
You want money? We'll give you money.
You don't want to pay the players without a season, basically.
No. You don't want to know what it is? They don't want to have to pay for the broadcast rights.
Yeah.
That's what it is, because the broadcast people aren't going to want to pay for the year if they're not doing any games. So in order to do games, you have to bring players back.
Mm-hmm.
So welcome to the world of money.
Yeah.
Wrong.
I mean, I'm not arguing with that. As much as we've said this before, as much as we want the league to return, it doesn't make sense if you're going to have people coming in from hotbeds.
No. And hub cities are different in my opinion. I'm more okay with a hub city for the NHL, and let's move on to the NHL.
Sure.
Because the news dropped this week, kind of. The reports dropped this week, let's say.
Yeah, there's multiple reports.
The two hub cities have been decided on, and Vegas lost. The two hub cities are going to be Edmonton for the Western Conference and Toronto for the East. Both in Canada, obviously, that's big news. I'm going to just go back to what I was about to say about Hub Cities.
Sure.
I'm better with Hub Cities. I don't mind
Okay.
Hub Cities as much. The way the MLB is doing it with teams traveling makes zero sense in my head. Because you're just asking for problems at that point. Hub Cities make the most sense if you're going to return to play properly. Only because you can quarantine everybody in one place. Right? Now, it's a little bit harder when you have 12 teams coming in to quarantine an entire thing, or, 22 going down to Florida to play in the MLB, or 26 for the MLS. It's tough. Don't get me wrong. That's a lot of hotels. Thankfully, down in Florida, ESPN, Wild World of Sports, and Disney will have enough hotels. That's just how it is. But when it comes to, Toronto being a hub city for the NHL, I get the hub city mentality. Bring everyone in, quarantine them, and keep them in a bubble. This is our bubble. No one's coming in and out of our bubble. Right? That makes sense. It makes more sense than the travel plan that the MLB has. So that's why at Toronto being a hub city, I don't have as many problems with, as opposed to the MLB hosting games in Toronto where teams are flying in from all over the states. I don't like that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I agree. Because there's no isolation happening.
Exactly.
Unless you're in your home city, whereas the hub cities, you can be like, here's 3 hotels downtown, for example, in Toronto, and that's where we're going to stuff teams in.
Exactly. And that's kind of where I'm at, and that's why I was struggling with the Jays coming and playing here.
Mm-hmm.
But let's get to the hockey, and obviously I said Edmonton, Toronto. Both teams are actually going to play in their home city. The East will be played out of Toronto, and they'll get to play their playing round against the Blue Jackets and everything. And we'll get into a preview of that hopefully next week. Preview the NHL matchups for the playing rounds and the round robins. But Edmonton gets to play in the West. It was also reported that Edmonton will host the conference finals as well as the Stanley Cup finals. So the first 2 rounds of playoffs will be hosted in Toronto and Edmonton, respectively. And then the last 8 teams... 8? Yeah, 4 and 4?
Yeah.
Yeah. 8 teams will all travel to Edmonton and play the conference finals and the Stanley Cup finals. Which is great. I mean, I think having it within Canada is a little bit easier than had they had one in Vegas and one in Toronto, it would have been maybe a little bit harder to do the cross-conference finals in one place.
Mm-hmm.
But I think they're going to be in the right scenario. Like, obviously, Edmonton is set up perfectly for this because they have a hotel connected directly to the rink. So they're going to house most of the teams in that hotel, have them go into the rink. There's another practice facility that they'll take buses to, sort of thing.
Yeah.
It makes sense. It looks really clean. Toronto might be a little bit more difficult with the transportation because there's no hotel directly connected to the Scotiabank Arena. I was about to say ACC, but it's...
yeah, I was going to say ACC. No.
that's not it. Scotiabank Arena. So, like, they will have a little bit more transportation, but they're using Ricoh Coliseum as the practice facility, which is right because it's not far. It's literally like 10 minutes, if that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, like, they have it set up, and Mayor Tory of Toronto said that he saw the plan and he was blown away by it. Thought it was phenomenal. Very detailed, very thorough. That's great.
Yeah, they're bubbling it up.
Yeah. Again, I worry about the workers in the hotels and in the arenas that have to come in and out and how that works. But for the most part, I think they're doing the right thing, and it'll be interesting to see how it actually plays out, I think, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I agree. I'm for it. I mean, if there's safety precautions associated with how they're doing it, like, even though you're isolating, you're still wearing a mask, you're still wearing your gloves, you're still following the rules. by the Public Health Agency of Canada or the UN or whoever is in charge of it, fine. And if you're isolating yourselves, good. But the MLB's that little question mark there with everything about their travel, about how they're moving in and out of venues, like that was the issue there. But I mean, I like the way you explain it, and I think our listeners will also appreciate that. The fact that you're isolating is very different than moving around to 3-4 different cities. And like you're keeping it from whatever number of games now in the East to the conference finals, which is whatever. Like that's still a very good bubble. And I think as teams get eliminated, they can head back to their respective cities if they want.
As soon as your team's out, you leave.
Yeah, and you're decreasing the number of people in the hotel, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
So
there's obviously problems with hub cities, and we're sort of seeing it with the MLS right now. Mm-hmm. News broke this morning that the FC Dallas Vancouver Whitecaps game has been postponed. Not canceled outright, but postponed for now because 9 players on FC Dallas tested positive. They're already in the bubble.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where the hub cities become sort of problematic, is that if a team or a player in the hub city gets it, how do you eliminate the spread? And they have precautions, they have protocols set up for this sort of thing, and we'll see how it works in the MLS. Hopefully it's only these 9 players, and everyone can come back healthy, and then they can finish the tournament. But, like, these were announced this week.
Yeah.
They have 14 days. That's 2 weeks. They were going to miss at least 2 games. It's a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll have to see how that sort of plays out.
Yeah. Maybe, like, the fact that it's postponed, maybe they'll just push it to a week after, or a week and a half after, when there's some sort of health associated with it. But we also don't know if the players coming back in those 2 weeks are going to be fully healthy and ready to play. You know what I mean?
Exactly. That's the problem, right?
Yeah.
Like, Rudy Gobert came out this week. He got it 3 months ago.
Mm-hmm.
He still doesn't have a sense of smell.
No. And it won't come back for a while. There's so many different things associated with the virus that we don't even know what's going to happen with it. Yeah.
So, it is what it is.
Yeah.
I just hope the players are safe.
Yes. The players are safe, the medical staff safe, the hotel staff, like everyone associated with this whole issue.
Exactly.
Incident is,
Exactly. Cool. Last thing I want to talk about before we head out. This week, the Washington football team, and yes, I'm going to call them the football team for now, they felt the pressure from multiple different angles regarding their name. FedEx, the title sponsor of the field, said, change your name. Political influences from the Washington area said, change your name. And Nike pulled all of their Washington football apparel from their website. So you cannot buy any Washington football apparel right now.
No.
Hats, jerseys, nothing. Can't pull anything.
No. Anything with the logo, anything with the name. No.
No, they pulled everything. Even if it just said
Washington.
That's what
I'm saying, yeah.
Even if it just said Washington, they pulled it. Everything's gone. You can't find anything.
Okay.
And this comes on the back of, obviously, the Black Lives Matter movement and the push for equality across all races. And this is long overdue. Back in 2013, Dan Schneider, who is the owner of the Washington football team, I almost said it, said that he would never change the team name. And he said you can put never in caps.
Okay.
That was back in 2013. This is 7 years later, and let's be honest, things change.
Mm-hmm. And
they released a statement this past week, actually yesterday. In light of recent events from around our country and feedback from our community, the Washington Redskins are announcing the team will undergo a thorough review of team's name. This review formalizes the initial discussion the team has been having with the league in recent weeks. And it goes on to explain what Dan Snyder says and Ron Rivera, the head coach. And By the way, Rivera is one of the most forward-thinking coaches in the league. He is pushing for this. Already can tell you that.
Yeah.
Then other teams in other leagues kind of got a little bit of flack real quick. Cleveland, their baseball team, obviously, put out a statement as well. And their statement reads, "We are committed to making a positive impact in our community and embrace our responsibility to advance social justice and equality. Our organization fully recognizes our team name is among the most visible ways in which we connect with the community. We have had ongoing discussions organizationally on these issues. The recent social unrest in our community and our country has only underscored the need for us to keep improving as an organization on social issues and social justice," which is great. I'm glad that these teams are now having discussions, right? Because let's be honest, the Washington football team was not having discussions about this before. Like, it was not happening.
No, even with the heat that they received when Schneider came in, like, it still didn't really do anything about it.
They were never going to have these discussions without this happening. But they're behind. Like, let's be honest, they're playing catch up now.
Mm-hmm.
And there's other teams like the Florida Seminoles, or Florida State Seminoles, like the college. You can go around to a couple more. But other teams have already done a lot. Like the Seminoles, for instance, work very closely with the Seminole tribe in Florida, right? So they have a direct connection, and the tribe has no problem with them using the name. Even better example, let's go to the CFL, right? The Edmonton Eskimos.
Mm-hmm.
They have been doing their work for years now. And we talked about it, and we talked about it off air, but let's bring it on air now. The Eskimos have been going into the Inuit communities within Canada for a few years now, and they've been talking with the communities about the use of the name Eskimos and if they are okay with it. And there was no consensus among the Inuit people and considerable support of the Eskimos' name among Inuit in various parts of northern Canada. So they got permission basically from the Inuit tribes. Now, they could have said, okay, we're done. Thank you for giving us permission, yada, yada, yada. The Eskimos didn't do that. Instead, they've reached out and they've put in engagement, like community engagement projects within the Inuit communities. And they've gone above and beyond what they needed to do just to get the name confirmed.
Great. Mm-hmm.
And they still do that. And to this day, they still send players and they still send coaching staff, and they do this throughout the Inuit communities in northern Canada, which is fantastic. And it's become part of the organization. It's not the fact that they are just here and they're just using the name. They're now becoming part of the Inuit communities within northern Canada, which is great. And the thing is, they came out with a statement basically saying that we're going to continue to talk to the Inuit people, and if they don't approve of us using the name, then we will make a decision, and that's fine. Right? I believe the exact statement says, and I'm reading it off my screen over here, "We recognize that there has been increased attention to the name recently, and we will ramp up our ongoing engagement with the Inuit communities to assess their views." This isn't something that they're taking lightly. They're actually going out. And they've been doing this for years. Washington has not. Cleveland has not. Cleveland did make one step in the right direction, removing the logo that they used to use. Chief Wahoo logo. They don't use that logo anymore. Their logo is now just a block C.
Mm-hmm.
That's one step in the right direction. Right? But it's still not there. And you're going to hear the Chicago Blackhawks, they're going to have their name brought up.
Yeah.
You're going to hear the Kansas City Chiefs, their name's going to get brought up as well.
The Braves.
And the Braves.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
The difference between maybe the Braves and the Chiefs and the Blackhawks is that those aren't slurs more than anything. Same with the Eskimos, same with the Seminoles. Those aren't really slurs. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, the Braves, that's kind of like a positive thing to say. Like, I know it's not. Like, don't get me wrong. It's still not right. But, like, that's not a terrible thing to call a Native American. Like, the Braves is not on the grand scale, right?
No, it's what they do during playoff games, which is an issue.
No, that's all games, by the way. You mean the chop?
Oh, it's all game. The shop, is that all games now?
Yeah.
I thought it was just play. Oh,
No,
well,
it's
I don't watch
always
enough
been all
Brave
games. You only see them in playoffs because we don't get Atlanta games up here.
We fell down. Hey.
The Chiefs, same thing, right? Like Chief is a revered person in the community. It's not a slur. The name for the Washington football team is a slur.
Yes.
The Cleveland baseball team, that's a horrible mistake, and I wouldn't necessarily call it a slur, but it's also not the right name.
No, you don't refer to that particular population by
right?
that anymore.
It's not the right name.
Mm-hmm.
So they're going to come under more flack. Like, that's just how it is.
Mm-hmm.
The other teams are going to come under flack. Don't get me wrong. The Blackhawks are going to see backlash. The Chiefs will hear backlash. The Braves will hear backlash. The Seminoles might even hear backlash. How many of these teams are realistically going to change their name, though?
Probably the first two.
Yeah.
Would be the most likely.
Yeah.
To change it. I mean, for the Braves, the action might be something that
they've been talking about getting rid of that for a few years now, though. So
yeah.
Until it happens, I don't believe it. But
no. But I mean, at this point in time, with everything going on, I think this would be the time to do all of this.
Right.
Yeah. But again, the first two teams for sure need to make an adjustment, whether they get called the Spiders or whatever the hell the names being floated for the Cleveland team. But
well, that's a former MLB team, right? So they're they're trying to go for a simple solution, just bring back the Spider name.
Spiders.
Which I don't mind it, right? Like if you see some of the logos and stuff, it's not terrible. Like it could be a much worse name.
Yeah, true. They're like, bring it the Expos. Don't do that.
Unless you're going to Montreal, you can't use the Expo name. Like, let's be honest.
No, there's stuff floating around.
But yeah, like I think the name needs to change in Washington, and the name should change in Cleveland.
Mm-hmm.
The Eskimos, I'm fine with. Like the Chiefs, the Braves, I'm fine with. I actually, as much as I like the Blackhawks logo, like the whole thing, it needs to change.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that'd be a step. Yeah.
And no, it's not even a step. It needs to change. Mm-hmm. It goes along with the Washington and Cleveland. But you notice the difference is that I don't have a problem saying that one. The other two I have a problem saying.
Yeah.
And I think that's the consensus around sports is that Washington and Cleveland, people struggle saying the team name.
Yeah.
Whereas the Blackhawks, no one really struggles.
Yeah. Because you can just call them the Hawks if you really wanted to.
Right. And you know what? That might be the logical move for a name.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It'd be lame, but it might be the logical move.
Yeah.
I mean, that happened here in Mississauga.
Mm-hmm.
Like Meadowvale used to be the Meadowvale Mohawks. And I think their A teams are still called the Mohawks.
Mm.
But all their house league teams changed to the Meadowvale Hawks.
There you go. It's a simple solution. Yeah.
It's a simple solution. It's not the best name, but
because you're used to that, that iconic name.
Yeah.
But
so it'll be interesting to see, and I think in the next couple of weeks we'll have more news on this for sure.
For sure. Yeah.
All right, buddy. End of the show. Quick last minute hit for the week. What do you want to talk?
Well, Mason Greenwood just absolutely crushed a shot. So it's 4-2 United. That's about it.
I did know that.
Oh, what a goal. Okay, I'm good. Have a good week. We love you from Garage Door Sports.
My end of the week is keep an eye on our website this week.
Yep.
And that's all I'm going to say.
Yeah.
That's it. Keep an eye on our website and our social media. Big things are coming. But yeah. So, unfortunately, Kyle couldn't be here, but for Irfan Manji, at Irfan Manji on Twitter, and myself, Nick McVicker, at Nick McVicker on Twitter, we want to thank you guys for listening. Follow us on Twitter at Garage Door Sport. Follow us on Instagram at Garage Door Sports. Check out our website, garagedoorsports.com, for all your latest news and information on the sporting world. And we will see you next week.